I view the larger culture, mainstream America, as hoodwinked. It's the emperor's new clothes. You know the story of the emperor's new clothes. The emperor's out naked walking down the street, and everybody has come to believe that the emperor has to have clothes on him, and no one's willing to speak up. I think our larger society has just swallowed what they've been taught in the media, as they typically do. Those who I see as fascist are the people who say there is one way to be and there is one way to think. And we are the ones who are going to tell you what that way is, and that way is that if you have homosexual feelings, you're gay. And if you're gay, you were born that way, despite the fact that there's really little or no evidence to suggest that. This is the way it is, and you must think that way. In fact, we are going to pass laws to ensure that you don't think any other way. Does that not sound like Nazism? Does that not sound like fascism to you? But it wasn't until I was about 22, 23 that I finally put together that what I was feeling toward other men and my masturbation fantasies meant that I could be homosexual if I wanted to. I remember the day very clearly when I finally decided to push it. I finally thought, you know what? I'm going to actually masturbate and fantasize about a guy. Fantasize that I'm having sex with a guy, and let's just see what that's like. And it was exciting, it was pleasurable. At that moment I realized I could be homosexual if I wanted to. I never felt obligated to be.
Let me clarify. People are not born gay, period. End of discussion. No one is born gay, any more than anyone is born heterosexual. I'm denying the existence of gay biology. That's different. I don't deny the existence of gay identity, but I absolutely deny the existence of gay biology. Well, absolutely. It's part of the multicultural movement. Multicultural movement really has got to take into consideration that religion is a very deeply felt and for some people unchangeable part of identity. And if I may, in my case, my religious identity trumped my sexual orientation. There was no way I was going to accept gay. It just wasn't going to happen.
Are you straight like me? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
I know you don't know, but you know what the question means.
I know what the question means.
Okay.
And I'll give you the answer.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't need to be. I'm as straight as I need to be. In fact, I'm probably a little more straight than I really need to be. In the 7th grade locker room, they've all got pubic hair. I don't have any yet. They're big and muscular. I'm not, in his mind at least. So these are biological things that could predispose this boy to feel incongruent, or could predispose him to have difficulty affiliating with the other boys. So father was an unpredictable, angry man. Loving sometimes, but unpredictable and angry. And there were some things that happened that really weren't his fault. For example, there was a murder-suicide in our neighborhood. Another father killed his family, killed himself. I transferred that onto my father. I was convinced my dad was going to do the same thing.
One of the reasons that we're still married is because of our faith, because of our strong spiritual grounding, because God's a part of our family. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's the pivot point.
I mean, religion is me, and it's like it's in my DNA to have faith from the time I was a little tiny kid.
I married a guy who was struggling with same-sex attraction. I mean, after I became more educated about it, after we got married, after the whole thing started going, same-sex attraction is the way that we have looked at it. That's the way I look at it. Because to identify himself as gay or homosexual, he's not. He never has been.
Before we got married, I believed that it would go away, that the same-sex attraction would kind of go away or wouldn't really be an issue if I got married. It's not that anyone told me that, because I hadn't talked to anybody about it, but I just kind of assumed that it wouldn't be that big of a deal or wouldn't be an issue. And so I went into the marriage, got married, And the feelings weren't really that big of a deal for a while.
David and I met in a film history class at Brigham Young University. He was a film major, and I was a musical theater major. We were such good friends that when he went to kiss me the first time, I was like, "Oh no, you're not going to kiss me, are you?" And that's not really what I meant to say, but this trait in him has been a real saving grace for our marriage. And instead of responding, being offended with that, he just looked at me and took my hand and said, "Well, yes, is that all right with you?" And I was like, "Sure." So he kissed me, and from there we were married very shortly after that. So
I wasn't drawn to her at first. She was just kind of this interesting girl in class, and then we did an assignment together, and it was while we were doing this assignment, the assignment was to do this little skit together, this play from some 18th century, 19th century play, and so we did it, and I realized that I really was interested in her. I can see that I had some degree of normal attraction toward her, but very blunted, meaning it was almost a semi-attraction to her. I realized she was beautiful. I realized she was interesting. She was intriguing and fun and all of that. But as I look back now, I realize that the attraction wasn't what my male peers were probably feeling toward the girls that they were going out with. It was far less, because now, all these years later, I have a much more full heterosexual attraction, and I realize how diminished my attraction was at the time.
yeah, he told me a year after we were married. I knew something wasn't quite right when we got married, but I knew he was the right man for me. I was really, really sure about that. I just deeply loved him and felt deeply connected to him, and I just knew it was the right thing. But he did tell me about a year after, well, within the first year after we got married, he said that, and we just took it in. He said something like, and I don't know if this is an exact quote, like again, it's been a long time, but he said something like, "I need to tell you something." And actually I was sitting on the steps going up to the upper floor of the apartment, and he said, I don't know if he said, "I think I'm attracted to men," or I think I'm dealing with homosexuality. He said something like that. I think it was more like I realized that I'm attracted to men. And I wasn't shocked. I wasn't even necessarily surprised.
When is a good time to tell your wife that? But I found the best time I could and told her about it. I remember her crying, but it wasn't crying like, "What did you do to me?" It was crying compassionately. I'm sure that there was some fear and some hurt, but that's not really what she led with, in the way she responded to me. It was much more of a compassionate, understanding, "I want to help you." And there was some fear too, but her response was really wonderful.
There has been a lot of pain, because what causes pain is distance. Is that really, and so there have been some incredibly painful times in our marriage. There was only one time in our marriage, of all the years that we've been dealing with it, when not that I ever thought it was wrong, not that I ever thought I made a mistake, not that I ever thought that any of that was the case, but that he might actually choose. I actually, I don't know how much you want, but I actually told him, I said, "You either change this or you leave." So, I said, "You can't do this." He said, and he was upset because he was like, what about the kids? I said, "Well, you'll have to tell the kids."
I mean, what I really wanted, even from the time I was, probably even at the time when 21, 22, 23, when I first realized it, I wanted to have kids and I wanted to have a family. And then by the time I started dealing with it, 6 or so years later, by then I had kids. And I never wanted to do anything really other than be their father and her husband. And what would we have? Another broken marriage, a wife with a heart broken, me with a heart broken.
because I would miss her. I'd never be able to make up for that. And 3 kids with hearts broken. Now, do we need more of that in our society?
So he would say to me, I'm really attracted to this guy, you know, and he was in a group that he was. Yeah.
Wow.
He would tell me that. So he was really honest with me. I mean, there were times when I would just sit and take a deep breath in and go, okay, what am I going to hear now?
And I did a lot crazier stuff than look at pornography. And she is an unbelievably intuitive person. And she caught me without catching me. Something just told her he's looking at pornography. And she just straight out asked me, like, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, see, that's their judgment. He's suppressed it. But I can tell you from my experience, if my husband was suppressing it, I would know. I would know. If he suppressed it long enough, I would know.
I can so deeply understand why a gay person is gay. I can so easily and completely understand that choice. Huh?
You can relate.
I can absolutely relate. I understand the choice. I can even understand why a person from a religious background would choose homosexuality over their religion. I can understand that. A slightly different personality, I might have gone there. I'm glad I didn't, because the rewards of where I am now are really high. I'm very happy with where I am.
Well, honestly, because from my perspective, he's grown so spiritually connected to God. And I've seen him, it's a lot of our years being married have been me being the spiritually strong one and saying, you know what, whatever. And he's now really stepped into that more and more. I see him initiating, I see him seeking out God more, I see him really connected spiritually and really connected to the core of who he is.
The term I have to use is ego-dystonic. Ego-dystonic means against the ego or against the sense of self. Or in other words, a behavior that does not resonate with who you see yourself as being. I've always been ego-dystonic about homosexuality. So even though the feelings that sometimes have been very, very strong, to the point where I was ready to give in to it, and I don't know what saved me, but even with that, it was always ego-dystonic. It always felt like this is not who I am. After being in this process, after working on myself for 16 years, I'm sexually attracted to my wife still. I have been for a long time. And there's almost I don't know if you'd call it fortunate or unfortunate thing that I've discovered, which is that I'm attracted to other women as well. I mean, I'm like any other guy who has to watch his eyes when he goes down the street, because sometimes women dress in a way that's provocative, and I'm attracted to them too.
I have clients that come here from London. I have clients that drive 9 hours to see me. Clients that call from all over. We have a client from Jakarta, a client from Turkey. I've had clients from Iceland, from England, because there's just no one out there doing it because it's politically incorrect.